I got carried away. I love that story. Okay, so then, you know, this would be more of an anticipatory thing. What would you do if you borrowed an expensive item from your friend and you lost it? That would be before they read the story. Would you tell the truth, or would you make up a story until you could resolve the situation, which is what they do? The other thing that I do is KWLs. People talk about KWL all the time. Sometimes, it's not the kind of thing you can do all of the time, just sometimes. So it's what do you know, what do you want to know, and what have you learned? But the what do you want to know part is nothing for them. They go, I don't want to know anything about it because I just don't. So, you know, so I kind of think that we might just do, you know, what do you know, and then afterwards, what have you learned? Because they don't want to know anything about it. For us, for the Odyssey, and then the exit ticket on that would be, I do sort of exit tickets just as informal assessment. And so to say, what current movie have you seen that tells the story of adventures of a hero? What are some of the qualities of a hero? You know, just to try to make connections. So what story is this?
Romeo and Juliet.
Very good. Very good. And that would be one of the ways that I would introduce Romeo and Juliet. You know, like Romeo is heartbroken when you first meet him, and so you talk to the kids about, you know, so that you bring it into their life. So this is my question, because this is where I spend a lot of time working on developing things, is what happens when you are the bridge. It's where I think that a lot more work needs to be done. And then I just said, you know, stories can provide context and create experiences for students that don't have prior knowledge, because what's happening is we are getting kids from everywhere. They don't have the same, you know, sometimes I used to say, okay, let's use fairy tales to demonstrate different concepts. They don't know them. They don't know, they didn't know Hansel and Gretel. It's like, you don't know Hansel and Gretel. I mean, they're coming from a different place in a lot of areas. So we have to create experiences. I do show and tell, because I teach a story called Marigolds. They don't know what marigolds are. And I bring them from my yard to teach the story. And then they talked about film clips. And that's it. So I just really kind of just wanted to, you know, sort of share a couple of things with you. It's certainly not everything, but just my focus in my room right now is to sort of really try to engage my students with text in the beginning, so that I don't have to do a whole lot of work during the reading part. So during reading, all I'm doing is stopping and asking questions, just, you know, but they're already excited when we start reading, and I spend all my time doing that. So anyway, so that's it. Thank you.
It's so nice to see you all. I was thinking, well, Regina's a tough act to follow. I've got all the research done. But I tried to jazz it up a little bit as well, because I think the research is interesting. And part of what, in going through this and thinking about slides to make, part of this for me is about teachers and schools and not bashing. And I think researchers, we don't want to do that, but sometimes it ends up that the slides, for example, I'm going to show in the beginning are about this literacy crisis, and so many people blame schools and teachers, and that is not my intention to do that. And so I think, in part, it's nice to come to a place like this where there are school representatives here from teachers or principals and specialists just coming in to help researchers, because we do need that help, and we want to work with you, and we want to create research that really is meaningful and usable for you all. So I think that for me was a major goal of this. In terms of the literacy crisis, I found some they were frustrating and very disheartening statistics, both from the National Council of Teacher Education, Teachers of English, website, and then the Children's Defense Fund website. And so I've underlined or bolded some of the things that really stood out to me in terms of what's going on in urban schools. And so one of the things is that on average, African American and Hispanic 12th graders read at the same level as white to 8th graders. And so we always know that there is this achievement gap, but to hear it in numbers like that, and I was a high school counselor in Philadelphia, and I worked with those African American 12th graders that couldn't read the word Philadelphia, couldn't fill out a college application, wanted to learn, really wanted to go to college, but just simply didn't have the skills. In terms of reading and writing in particular. High school graduation rates for students of color, about 50%. That's the same in urban districts. We know that English language learners don't stay in, they drop out. And for the 50% who do graduate, only 34% of high school students graduate with the skills that they really need. So again, that's what I was seeing. I was working in a TRIO program that's basically sort of like an upward bound program that reached out to high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools, just trying to bring them through the pipeline. Because I was working in a district where there was no pipeline. It was just completely, you're on your own. Hooray, I've made it through high school almost. And so I saw a lot of these kids come out with skills that they thought were fine, but really weren't enough. And then these last two bullets, I had been really grappling with this, and when I'm in my teacher ed classes, I tell my teachers that you are really social justice advocates, because if you think about what this is saying, not only the cost to us economically as a nation, but the sense that approximately 70% of incarcerated children have education-related disabilities that qualify them, so they weren't getting the services that they needed. And that low reading scores and achievement levels are factors contributing to the school-to-prison pipeline. And there are states out there that use reading achievement data to figure out how many prison beds they should make in the future. They're using that as projections. They're looking at third-grade kids that are not failing and projecting out that way. So when you teach reading, it's serious. You are really giving kids access to skills that could perhaps keep them out of jail. Could give them a boost up in life, could give them that upward mobility that we all talk about as the American dream. For me, teaching reading is that type of social justice. So just looking in terms of what's going on, I picked, again, urban. Regina and I kind of talked about what is urban, and so I just wanted to give you a sense of what's going on in Baltimore. This was a couple of years ago. Grade 3 is on the left and grade 8 is on the right. And down here you see the different demographic groups. And I mean, again, it's what we know in terms of the achievement gap. But for me, when I look at these, I cringe at the advanced. I cringe, I don't want to see these long bars for provision. For me, it's that the advanced levels are so small. And in 8th grade, just a little bump there for African American kids, but not anywhere near. Even Hispanics, they're actually going down a little according to these data in terms of the advanced bars. And so what was interesting to me was to also look at Prince George's, and it was just interesting to me to hear Regina talk about a suburban school district with urban challenges, and that is a reality. And it might be that way for Howard, I'm not sure, but it's the same way that gap is there. So for me, the question was, how can research improve reading achievement of urban students? How can we as researchers do the kinds of studies, do the kind of thinking that would help teachers and schools make a difference? And these questions here, I mean, as a researcher, we might come into a school and think we've got all the answers and we know what it means to be a good reader and what's good reading instruction, but believe you me, we don't. We argue about this stuff. And so again, I feel like as a researcher, it's so helpful for me to go in and see teachers that are actually doing the kinds of things like a Regina that she's talking about, because that to me is seeing it in action. And for me, qualitative research has been a way, a methodology for me to richly describe what's going on for teachers and to try to help teachers then begin to think about those strategies and ways they could implement them. So I am I do believe in quantitative research, and I'm not one of those people that shun that, but I think there's definitely room for both, and that we are grappling with these issues, and we need to go into schools and actually figure out what this looks like and not do it from afar. So what does it mean to be a good reader? What's good reading instruction? And for me, the last two are sort of what I'm going to talk about. What's the current state of research on urban reading, and what kind of research do we need?